Well, good evening. We've got about a minute, but we'll go ahead and start. Appreciate all of you being with us, and this is our only meeting for the month of December, so we're combining the work session and the general session this month. But again, we're glad you're with us. In the beginning of our meetings, we like to open with a moment of silence, and we invite you to join with us, please. Thank you. And with that, the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll have Mr. Kruzberger is going to introduce our student. And if you'll join us in the pledge, Kurt, if you want to go ahead and introduce him, and then I think you can stay up there.
It's my pleasure to introduce Michael Spearman. Michael's a senior at Westwood High School, and he's here in a couple different capacities. He's here first to lead us in the pledge. He's our battalion commander with our ROTC. He's been a member of ROTC for several years. A very fine young man. He plans after high school to go to a four-year school where he said he wants to pursue a degree and become a law enforcement officer. And that would be great, because to have a guy of this caliber and his character as law enforcement would be a wonderful thing. Michael's involved in a lot of different things at our school. He's in our Interact Club. He's in Chick-fil-A Leadership Academy. You can see he's in ROTC. And so he is just a great example of and representative for our school, Westwood. I'm very proud of him and what he's done, and really count an honor to be his principal and be able to be up here and to introduce him. And so,
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike.
While Michael's up, we're going to go ahead and recognize Michael for something else. We especially like to recognize our students when they achieve state-level awards. And just last month, Michael, in addition to all the activities Mr. Kruzberger told you about, competed in the state cross-country championships. And he's quite the runner. Got a little brother that's going to follow in his footsteps, Andrew, in a couple of years, we hope, maybe next year even. But he won the state 3A cross-country championship. He can run 3 miles, 3.1 miles actually, in about 16 minutes, which is pretty quick. That's about 42 different schools that Westwood was competing against.
That's correct.
And we had a good performance from several students in Oconee County at that state cross-country championship, but Michael rose to the top, and we wanted to recognize him in front of everybody. He did a great job. And yeah, he'll recognize you in just a
Okay.
second.
Tracy, come on up. We're going to do Oconee Academy next.
We, at Oconee Academy, we'd like to recognize one of our employees that has provided an invaluable service to us each year that we've been there. That's Miss Stacy Frick. She is our mental health counselor, our awesome counseling support for our faculty as well as our students. And like I said, she's invaluable service. About 90% of our students work with her on different levels, and we can't do what we do without her expertise in our day on a daily basis. And we appreciate all the change. We also want to give a school highlight. This is Miss Suzanne Rogers. She is our school teacher of the year, but she's also School District of Oconee County's Teacher of the Year. And I asked her if she would share the highlights for our school today. And we've got a PowerPoint here that we'll go through.
We have a little thing here. Well, I'm very proud here to give you the highlights of Oconee Academy and the work that we have done so far. And so our mission statement is going to be on the screen shortly.
Yep.
Striving for things.
Strives to meet the.
Oh, it's right there. There we go. Thank you. We're striving to meet the unique needs of very diverse students in a very safe and nurturing environment, mutual respect. We've highlighted some of the things that we do in order to meet that mission statement. We're very big on student-centered personalized education. We're not a one-size-fits-all program. When a student comes to us, we make sure that we do a lot of talking with them and meeting with them to see what they're going to need. And we try to make them very civically and personally responsible. We get very involved with their families, and we do all of these things in order to create the lifelong learners that the district wants all of our students to have. So our students get that opportunity as well. Our faculty and staff are mostly over here. So our director, of course, is Ms. Tracy Long. For our middle school, we have myself, I'm the ELA teacher. We have Mr. Hopkins, who is our math teacher, and Ms. Carlisle is our social studies teacher. She does double duty. She does the high school as well. And then our high school is we have Ms. Jill Moore right here and Dr. Johnson right here. And then we have our support staff, our ISS and Apex guru. Ms. Janelle Scott is right here. Ms. Emily Hodge, administration, just everything in that falls under that category. Ms. Frick, who you just met, Ms. Melanie Harlow-Taylor, Ms. HT is back there. She serves our special education students. And then we have Mr. Greg Beard, who is our guidance counselor that comes once a week. We currently serve 32 students from the district, but because the nature of our school has students coming in and out at this point, we have served 60 students, and some have gone on to other things. But we deal with a wide range of issues. It can be behavior, it can be truancy, it can be education, so it's not just one type of student that comes to us. We do have an age range from 12 to 17, and that is an interesting dynamic when we have all of them together. The majority are on a reduced or free lunch program, and the majority do take advantage of our counseling services, which is why Ms. Frick is such an invaluable resource to us. But we have 10 females and 22 males and 8 minorities. That's okay. Can we go back one? Okay, so the OA approach, these are 2 things that we're really focusing on. We do run a Love and Logic classroom. The students are presented with this when they come in for intake. We know that we need to do something different from what they were getting at their home schools because that clearly wasn't working, so we need to do something different. And it's a very general program, but it helps us tailor-make the consequences for our students. And the main thing that I love about it is that when a student causes a problem, I ask them to solve it first, which is very new to me, even with my second year here, because I'm used to solving all the problems for them. But we've gotten a lot of success with this. It's better for the kids to learn how to solve it. They're very independent thinkers anyway, and they like having that opportunity. What we do does depend on the special person and the special situation, and we just want to foster an environment of respect. If the kids come looking for a fight at Oconee Academy, they're not going to find one. Okay, we just don't give it to them. And one thing that we're really focusing on this year is the size of your problem to the size of your reaction. And we've had a lot of success with this, especially in the middle school, because their reactions are huge over the smallest little things. And so we work with them on this. Everybody has this poster in their room. It's in the cafeteria and all the visible places. And we ask the kids to evaluate their reaction to the size of their problem, and that's working out well too. The OA Famous Four, all the kids memorize this. It's something that we talk about a lot. We have to have the kids ask themselves, is it worth it? And if it is worth it, then you can't gripe and complain when you get the consequence. So if they can ask themselves that question and answer it honestly, a lot of the problems solve themselves. We also encourage them not to make anything public. When they do communicate with us, they need to communicate well, and we do not communicate with them until they are ready to do that. And then we try to encourage them the time and place. You know, there's a time and a place for everything, and school's not really the time and place for a lot of that. But those 4 questions and those 4 statements are very easy for the kids to remember, and they seem to like having those 4 things reiterated to them. And these are just some pictures of some actual smiling faces and kids having a good time. We do take them on field trips. There's a current picture of the chopped competition, which OA came in 2nd place. I'm very proud. But we've got good kids and a good staff, and we work really hard, and we appreciate all the support that the school board gives us. Y'all have been great and helpful, and all the homeschools have been working really hard to make this a good place too, and we're just very, very proud of it. So thank you for allowing me the time to share that with y'all. I hope I did everything. Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate what you do. Anything else, Dr. Thorsman? Okay. Next then is the approval of tonight's agenda. If we can get a motion to approve the regular board meeting agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the agenda for the December 12th, 2016 regular board meeting.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Anybody see anything they need to adjust? Hearing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. Next is public comment. Individuals can have 5 minutes to address the board on a particular issue, and you're supposed to sign up. So we have 2? Okay. You go ahead. Call
The
them up.
first speaker will be Makola Turner. She will have 5 minutes.
First off, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight. I thought I would start by telling you a little bit about myself and why I'm here. At 3 years old, I received my first musical instrument, a ukulele. At 4, I started violin lessons, and by age 5, I was the proud owner of a very tiny violin. At 7, I received a mandolin for Christmas. At age 8, I sang in my school's choir. At 10, I was playing the recorder with my fellow classmates. 11, I was playing in the Carolina Youth Symphony. 12, I picked up my first cello, along with 17 other eager 6th graders. At 13, I was able to participate in an elite music summer program at the Governor's School and All-Region Orchestra. When I reached age 14, I was playing cello for the chamber ensemble at Walhalla High. I earned my first busking dollar and booked one of my first paying gigs. At age 15, I had the opportunity to participate in All-State Orchestra and the chance to travel and play at Carnegie Hall in New York City. At age 16, I stand in front of a group threatening to destroy something extremely important in my life and very close to my heart. Around 2 years ago, a proposition was brought forth to the school board suggesting a change in the schedule of Students' Day, the 4x4 semester schedule. The general idea to the schedule is to have 4 classes every day for a full semester, then 4 different classes every day for the next semester. This schedule, however, raises some serious concerns for students. Issues arise in classes such as AP classes, which need a full year to cover all the necessary materials needed for the AP exam, and in many cases become double-blocked, restricting the amount of classes a student can take, instead of giving them more options, as some proponents suggest. Along with this double booking comes the issue of scheduling. In an article by John Benham, published in The Instrumentalist, he states, "During each semester that students cannot include music in their schedules, they will lose ground. Chances for scheduling conflicts go up from 1 out of 6 to 1 out of 4. Many students who are scheduled out of band or orchestra never return. And during semesters when students do not play in an ensemble, their embouchures and other highly developed muscles will deteriorate unless students practice and take lessons on their own, something only a small percentage are likely to do, whether due to money constraints or time conflicts. Moreover, any ensemble that undergoes radical changes in membership each semester will suffer badly. This is something that schools close to us have seen. Once thriving and engaging programs have seen sudden drops in participation after switching. With these drops in participation, students could be missing out on serious opportunities for their future. Students like Miss McKee, who otherwise would not have had the money and opportunity to attend college if she had not learned to play the cello in the Walhalla Orchestra program. She attended Furman University under a music scholarship and now teaches at the very school where she got her start. She is not the only success story to come out of our schools. There are others, such as Jesus Miranda, who started playing as a sophomore and also gained a music scholarship to Furman, and Bryce Johnson, who now attends Belmont University, a very difficult music school. All of these students' lives were shaped and changed by the opportunities provided by the music programs at our schools, programs that very well could not exist if this new schedule is approved. I'd like to ask each and every one of you to think about how music has shaped your lives. Really, think of all the times you experience music in your everyday lives. Whether you jam to songs in your car, sing hymns in church, attend concerts, watch videos, TV shows, movies, commercials, whether you go dancing or to a wedding or an event, even walking the streets of downtown Greenville. Music is everywhere, and the people who make music are everywhere. But those people didn't all have the amazing parents I had. They did not all have parents who started them young and helped them thrive. Some of the most amazing musicians started out in our schools. From Miss McKee to Bryce Johnson to Jesus Miranda, each one of these students found success and hope in our school's music programs. I'm asking you to please preserve that hope for generations to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I can, if you want me to do it now or wait till after the second. Okay. Mr. Nabinett just asked me to clarify a couple of things. I know in talking to Mr. Garrett, not all of the classes will be changing to a 4x4 block. And I believe his expectation is that the orchestra classes would remain on an AB schedule, so the students would continue to see the teacher all year. I believe the way Ms. McKee's schedule works, she's at Walhalla High first period each day. And that would continue. It would continue on an AB block. I know that West Oak's doing a similar, they have a similar schedule with some of the AP and performing arts classes. The 4x4 block, our principals feel like it will give us much more flexibility. We can continue to leave some classes on a 4x4, on an AB schedule. And there'll be some electives and some other classes that will be able to be paired with those classes to maintain that year-long contact between students and teachers. So it's not just cold turkey, everything's going to semester block. And our principals are diligently working on that now. We did have a meeting last Thursday where we discussed kind of the plans, and I think some exceptions are being made. Like I said, it's not going to be every class on that 4x4. There are definitely some needs with performing arts and AP where just some massaging of that schedule has to take place, and the principals are actively working on that to make sure that those students' needs are met, to the best of our ability.
Okay. Thank you. Next.
The next speaker is Jermaine Bowen. He has submitted an email that he would like for me to read to the board. Ms. Gibson has also given you a policy to which he is referring in this letter. So I'm going to read that now. My name is Jermaine Bowens, and on behalf of my company, I am seeking the board's support to help straighten out misunderstandings from the superintendent and my correspondences. Please allow me to give background about my company and explain responses from the superintendent and my correspondences. As previously stated, my name is Jermaine, and I am a representative for Mocomte LLC. Mocomte sells merchandise and promotes events in academics, physical exercises, sports, and performance and art. Our mission is to combat against negative trends of amusement by providing safe and positive entertainment for family-oriented audiences. Most importantly, our events were designed for activities which elaborate in common areas of school curriculum and vocations. This design was implemented to meet policies for using school facilities when space or pricing in local venues made it difficult to keep costs low for community participation. In my correspondence to the superintendent, I requested to use school facilities for activities which are part of the desired curriculum, but yet aren't being offered by the school. I made this request to the superintendent because policy requires the superintendent to approve requests for private or corporate gain to rent school facilities for activities which are part of the desired curriculum, but yet are not offered by the school. In response to my request, The superintendent didn't think the policy applied to my company because it is not nonprofit and because he does not believe the school needs a second after-school program. The superintendent's reasons were about nonprofit and second after-school program, but the superintendent's reasons are not applicable to my request based on the policy about private or corporate gain renting school facilities. For example, nonprofit is not applicable because I'm not a nonprofit, and I seek to use in compliance with policy for private or corporate gain. Another example is the after-school program is not part of my request, nor is it required in the policy for private or corporate gain. I think the superintendent is confusing language from the policy about after-school programs and nonprofit with language from the policy about private or corporate gain renting school facilities. If the board agrees there is such confusion, will the members help communicate it to the superintendent?
Thank you.
And I may not have a full understanding. Our policy is very clear that the rental is intended for Oconee County nonprofits. So, any registered with the Secretary of State nonprofit agency or organization in Oconee County has the ability to rent our buildings. And of course, y'all have approved a fee structure for that, and we have different groups that do use our buildings. The caveat, I guess, for a for-profit business is if that for-profit business is providing something that would enhance our curriculum that we're currently not able to offer. For example, if a few years ago, the last time I remember it, there was an outfit that provided karate lessons in a couple of our elementary schools, and it was for profit. But there were principals that desired to have that as an option for some of their students after school. And I think it was maybe down at Fair Oak that was offered there was one place. And students in the Fair Oak area would have to drive probably Anderson, Seneca, Clemson to get that opportunity. So the principal felt like it was worthwhile. And that was approved, and that company was able to offer those lessons at Fair Oak. In this particular case, I'm not exactly sure what would be offered that would enhance the curriculum, and I kind of feel like I would need a principal to come to me and say, hey, this is something that's good, it will help our students. If that's the case, then I'll be happy to discuss that with a for-profit company if it's something that would be a desired part of the school curriculum, would enhance something we already do or provide something we're not able to provide. I don't feel like that's been met at the particular time. So.
Thank you. No others? Okay, thank
Mike,
you.
would it be possible just to get this individual to give us a list of what it is that he really wants to do?
Sure.
Like a syllabus?
Mr. Bowens is here.
Okay.
Ask for a syllabus. Ask for a syllabus of what he's going
Right.
to do. Yeah.
And then also, again, for it to meet the desired part of the school curriculum, there has to be a principal saying, yes, I want this offered to my
Right.
to my students.
It says the principal and the assistant superintendent for operational services will meet to discuss it.
Okay. Thank you, Jermaine. Appreciate that. And if you can call Dr. Thorsland, they'll clarify how to do all of that, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question real quick. The part about the after-school program portion, or like as a lesson for the students to participate, I'm looking like for people, a lot of people in the community to be able to participate, not just like one individual school, just want to use the facility. So, I mean, is that okay? We got to understand about what I'm saying there? Or we can just talk later on?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
you
no,
need
we
to
just
talk
need
to
to have
them.
more.
And like I said, you need to give an outline of what it is exactly you would do in those meetings and how that would enhance us as a school district too.
Thank you much.
Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda, we need a motion to approve the minutes from the November 14 work session.
Mr. Chairman, I move the minutes of the November 14th, 2016 work session be approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Anybody see anything needed to address? Hearing none, all in favor, it's also unanimous. And then division reports, Dr. Thornton.
Okay. First, I'm going to, I don't know if Ms. Moore wants to do the, but Donnie Stepp is here. And we have much to Mr. Estep's delight, and maybe even more so to Ms. Moore's delight. The audit has been completed for this year, and Mr. Estep's going to present some findings to you.
I'm glad to be here again, and welcome Joe to this new information he's going to get tonight.
Appreciate it.
We once again, as you know, we actually issue 3 opinion letters with each audit. One covers the basic financial statements. The other 2 concern the single audit work that we do for internal control studies and compliance auditing. And in all 3 cases, y'all received what we call an unmodified opinion, which is the best you can get. That means we didn't find anything significant enough that we felt like we needed to list it in the audit report. And that had always been the case. We have had findings in the past, but this year there was nothing that rose to that level that we felt like needed to be disclosed. So that's the first point I want to make, is you've got what we consider the best opinion you can get on not only the single audit, but on the basic financial statements. This year, if you look at some of the information that Gloria has sent you, you will notice that our net position, which is the net of all our assets and liabilities in the school district, that's buildings, cash, everything, and then we subtract out all the liabilities that y'all owe. If you notice, this year it went up by $6 million, from $36 million to $42 million. And a lot of times that results from building programs, putting buildings on that cost, it might cost as much as what the bond payable is, but the bond payables are written off a lot faster than the buildings are. So you can increase your net position just from the normal depreciation of buildings compared to how fast we pay off the bonds, and y'all pay your bonds off, pretty fast. So that's one of the explanations for why your net position would go up. One of the other points I want to make is, and we talk about this every year, on our governmental activities, which includes everything except food service, we always show a negative unrestricted balance these last 2 years. If you remember last year, we had to start recording a pension liability that we've never had to record before. And it's supposed to be the school district's share of the statewide plan. And as you know, the statewide plan owes a net pension obligation. They have not built up enough assets to pay for all the pensions that are coming down the road in the future. Well, a couple of years ago, a new accounting pronouncement said you had to pass all that to the different entities that participate in the statewide plan. And the result was, on all these governmental audit reports, a big liability all of a sudden pops up that in the former years, we didn't consider that to be a liability of the school district because we paid what the state told us to pay. We sent our contributions in. As far as we were concerned, the school district was done with their part of the liability. Well, this new pronouncement makes them split that liability back out to everybody. And in y'all's case, we're showing a negative balance of about $105 million. And it's caused by that net pension liability, because if you look at our net pension liability, it's about $117,000 that we've added to our net liabilities, I guess you would say. So we would actually have a positive unrestricted net position. if it wasn't for this accounting change that we had to start recording a couple of years ago. And by the way, that net pension liability did go up this year. We're hoping at some point it'll start going down some. But what that means is, once again, the investments and contributions from all the people participating in the state pension plan wasn't enough to offset the future payouts that are going to be coming down the road somewhere. So that's kind of an explanation of why that net position for the unrestricted portion of it is always showing up as negative now. And of course, all the bonding companies are aware of this new accounting pronouncement. They take that into consideration. If you look at the food service fund, it makes the food service fund look like it has a negative. The business type activities, if you look at the net pension liability for that one, it looks like it changed at about $2 million into the negative, and we're showing a $288,000 negative unrestricted balance. So we would actually have a positive balance if we didn't have to record that liability. And as far as food service is concerned, its net position didn't change hardly at all from last year to this year. And that should be the case just about every year on it. And once you get past the net position funds, you get into the old-timey accounting, what we call fund accounting. And that's where you have the general fund, all the special revenue funds, food service fund, debt service, capital projects. That's where we've always done the accounting for the school districts. And this year, the general fund increased by $186,000, so it's still in the $19 million range. And if you look at the comparison to the budget, that was caused by we collected more revenues than what we had budgeted, both from property taxes and from the state. And we also spent a little less money than what we had budgeted, so that contributed to that. We'd actually budgeted to have a deficit of over $1 million. That's what the plan was to eat into that fund balance a little bit. But as it turned out, we actually gained slightly, so we didn't decrease our fund balance any this year. It's still in the $19 million range. And I think Gloria had a percentage. What was the percentage of our expenditures now? 20.6, and that's kind of the policy that y'all established as far as the size of fund balance that you wanted to maintain. The only other thing I really want to draw to your attention would be people activity funds. They increased slightly. It's about the same as what we've been having in prior years. We do test 3 of those in detail. We pick 3 different schools every year to go out and go on site and actually do some testing. But that amount hasn't changed much from year to year. And that's basically all I wanted to say. Yes, y'all got something y'all want to talk about.
I have a question.
Sure.
Same one I had last year. How binding is this $105 million that the state is holding over our head?
Well,
Or does anybody know?
What they're saying is if the state ever liquidated, went out of business, that would be our share. We would be looking to us to come up with that money. It would be a disaster scenario for you to ever have to pay anything.
Well, there's nothing, we have control over to fix it.
That's why I don't agree with the whole situation.
We don't have any
Nothing.
say
Exactly.
into it of how much money is paid in, and
It just makes the state's
the
statement look
legislature
better and
has
ours
to
look
deal.
worse.
Yeah.
But I agree with what you're saying. We've done what we were supposed to do.
That's all we can do. Any other comments, questions? Well, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Moore.
I appreciate the
Can-
assistance, and I even got Steve to help me carry my stuff out on the last day. I think he was trying to get me out the door.
I told him we love him, but we're happy to get him out the door. Gloria could go back to a semi-normal existence.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Appreciate you being with us in the report.
Mr. Nabin, I did not print the report for you all because it is so long, but it will be posted on the website tomorrow.
Okay.
So,
If you'll send us that, just to be sure,
the PDF?
we know how to get to it.
Okay, yes, sir.
Bedtime reading, if you need to go
Yeah.
to sleep, it's about 165 pages,
Yes.
somewhere in that range, so
Just save a tree.
we saved a tree. However, a sapling got sacrificed anyway with the next topic.
Well, you could do the month's financial
Yeah.
report.
No, that's
Not yet.
not our time yet.
Oh,
That's
it's
in-
not
that's
down,
in operational
further
services.
down, okay.
I've got one more thing, if I could
Yeah.
cover that. Just wanted to update you on the staggered start discussion. Last month, you asked us to gather a little more information, which we tried to do. This is quite a lengthy report, but that is a copy of every parent comment that's been made on that survey over the last week. We put that out last week. We sent a one-call voice message that everyone got to notify them of that. It's been on the website. It was out on social media, Facebook and Twitter, to ask people to reply. And we did. We had over 1,500 community members reply to this. And Ms. Wycliffe helped put these comments in categories for us. And the main thing I wanted was the number of percentage of people that this would negatively impact. And out of the 1,519 respondents, about 739 did say it would have a negative impact in their family. It's about 49%. 780 said that it would not affect their family, so it was either neutral, and then there were a lot of those folks, the 780, said it was positive for their family as well. So there's a little more in the neutral, no impact, or positive impact than it was in those that would be negatively affected. Again, my reason for supporting this is because it will shorten bus routes. I mean, when you just look at the math, there's no way that it won't. Again, it may not for an individual student. I can't go to every single student that rides the bus and say your route will be shorter. But if we take all the students in the district, take the time that they're on the bus this year, and if this change were implemented and we did the same thing next year, the ride times will be shorter. And Mr. Hamby has some specific information. Mr. Ruquette had asked a few questions that we've tried to get the answers to. As far as actually routing the buses to tell you how much shorter each would take, in the summer, that is a process that takes weeks. Literally, it takes the bus drivers out. Some of them go out and drive the routes, and it takes all the drivers, the supervisors, Mr. Grant. I mean, that is a long process, so we can't do that at this point in the school year. So we can't give too many specifics. And I guess the last thing I'll say before I let Mr. Hamby just share the answers to some of those questions, I still would make the case that the people, many of the students who will be most positively affected by this, do not have persons representing them in this survey. I'm not saying every student who rides a bus doesn't have a parent advocate or an adult advocate. Some of them do. But most of the students in our school district who don't have adult advocates do ride buses. So a large percentage of students who need to be advocated for are not reflected in this. And those are the students whose ride times are going to be shorter.
So one of the, I think you're talking the larger concerns though is that dropping kids off at various times and supervision of and for employees and stuff
And the
we'll
schools
be
will
able
be
to
open.
address those.
The schools will be open, and parents will still be able to drop off even middle and high school students like they do now, before 8, even 7:20, 7:30, and we plan to have opportunities for those students to do homework. They will be supervised. It won't be just a free-for-all where we're making kids sit in the parking lot or anything like that. Our principals have committed to that. And,
'Cause that's one of the biggest questions I've gotten from calls and stuff is, well, if I drop them at 7:20, what are they gonna do?
And this will not extend the day for anybody, will it? I mean, because it dropped off at 7:30, a lot of them are being dropped off at 7:30 now.
right, it would, a student who's dropped off at 7:30 this year, and a student, if this was approved, a student who would be dropped off at 7:30 next year would have a day of, maybe a half hour longer, a half hour at the most. But they're gonna have opportunity. I just think about my students, the amount of time they spend on homework every day. If they're doing some of that at school, it still can be productive time. And there will be students who, from the time they're picked up in the morning to the time they're dropped off in the bus in the afternoon, their days are going to be shorter. We're helping those students because they may get 15, 20 extra minutes of sleep in the morning. Those students who get on the bus at 6 o'clock right now, maybe next year at 6:15, 6:20, so they get another few minutes of sleep. And they may get home earlier in the afternoon. So for every student who has his or her day extended a little bit because of parent drop-off, there's going to be a corresponding student or two who rides the bus that's going to have a shorter day because of this. Again, I'm not pretending it's
But
perfect for everyone.
you're saying that probably not any longer than 30 minutes for the entire day for any student.
What I'm saying is a student who is dropped off at 7:30 right now,
Yes.
they get out at 3:15 if they're a middle school or high school
Yeah.
student. Next year, if they were dropped off at 7:30, they would get out at 3:30 for middle, 3:45 maybe for high. So you're looking at a half hour longer day. I won't deny that. But it's not going to be an hour or 2 hours or anything like that. It has potential to be a half hour.
A couple of things that I was asked to look at. One of them was availability of drivers, unfilled positions, and that kind of thing. We currently have 3 vacancies that we haven't filled, but on a regular basis, all 3 of our area supervisors, Mr. Grant himself, Mr. Gibson from maintenance, we have teachers at schools that they get to drive. I know a couple of coaches that drive when they're out of season as substitute drivers and that. We always have to have extras. We currently run 79 regular routes and 12 special need routes. So we have 91 buses on a typical day out on the road. And the 12 special needs routes, those are a combination of elementary, middle, and high. They're going all over the place, and they're running midday routes with the PIP program, preschool intervention, for our 3 and 4-year-olds and those kind of things. We may have kids who have a modified day for special needs that they're running routes for, and they're going. So you really take those 12 out of the equation because they're going to be busy doing only special needs transportation. So we have 79 other buses, and what that comes out to is we have 28 basically assigned to the West Oak area, 25 the Seneca area, and 26 in the Walhalla area. So it's not all just half and half. I've got a chart here. For example, in the Seneca area, there are 9 specific elementary routes, 7 specific middle and high routes, and then 9 others out of that can run some kind of combo route. Seneca, I will say, is, I think I'm right, no, West Oak has one. There are about 2 or 3 buses in our district that actually have some combination of elementary, middle, and high kids on them at the same time. We make the elementary kids sit at the front, and we have that, but we try to obviously minimize that. So like in the Seneca area, you'd have potentially 9 more or 7 more that could run multiple routes, elementary and middle and high. In the Walhalla area, it'd be 8. In the West Oak area, they have 14 elementary, 14 middle and high, so they would be the area that I think would gain the most from it, because they also dedicate 2 extra buses to the shuttle from West Oak Middle School to Fair Oak to stop that. But that would be able to get more buses out on each route. You know, short elementary route, run that, drop them off at 7:20, then go run a middle and high route. The distance routes, I mean, it's still going to be 20 whatever miles it is to Long Creek, but if you cut down the number of stops on the way, then you speed up the time that the kid is on the bus going back home, or you lessen the time, or you speed up the time the bus can get there. So there are those advantages. Again, I didn't ask Sammy to do full routes to some of these places because the basic math tells us that it's going to lessen the routes if you can put more buses going out there, but it would be a lot of work, and they would have to be approved by the state. The question came about asking the state for more buses. Well, one problem with that is we don't have enough drivers for the one we got. The other problem with that is that they typically assign them based on your population and the routes that they have. Sammy gave me an example. He's been trying for 2 years to get a route adjusted. He sent it to me, but I didn't include it. But he's been trying for 2 years to get a route adjusted. He brought the gentleman up from the State Department, Dennis Myers, who I spoke with back in November, and to have him run the route and that, and still haven't been able to get it approved. And he said, Mr. Myers' answer was, do a staggered start time. You know, you won't have that problem. They took right before school started, they took 6 of our buses, and they replaced them with 6, but they took transit buses, which hold 74, and they gave us the next one down, which holds 65. So that becomes another issue when you can only get so many on the bus if it's maxed out. We have some routes that run now, and they drop off, and then they come back and pick up the rest of their kids because they can't all fit on the bus we have for them. So they're waiting at the school being supervised and that. The state does determine the number of buses we get, so that's pretty much up to them. That was one of the questions. And the question about would a new staggered schedule eliminate all extended routes? No, there's nothing going to eliminate all extended routes, but it will shorten the majority of the routes for the majority of the kids. And you know, again, is that, when I say shorten, do I mean 45 minutes? No, because by nature of our district, you know, and how big of an attendance area, for example, West Oak is. And Seneca will help tremendously because it's a smaller attendance area, but the Walhalla attendance area and the West Oak attendance area are very large, mileage-wise, you know, from point to point. So there's still going to be some long routes in there. This has nothing to do with you know, these routes have nothing to do with the school setup and how we do that now with the change in the Walhalla area. We got that question. It just seems that for us to give those kids a better chance to be successful and not have to spend upwards of 2 to 3 hours on a bus each day.
Ms. Tanby, isn't it true that we could possibly use fewer drivers?
That is potentially the case. We haven't worked that part out yet, but that is a potential. Until we run the routes, we don't want to, you know, say how many, you know, in that, but that is definitely potentially the case.
And I'll just say, a couple of weeks ago, I went to a meeting in Columbia and had lunch with Dr. Royster, who was here a few years ago, is now the superintendent in Greenville, and I just asked him about it. Greenville County's done this for a number of years, and they even have buses that run 3 routes. They'll pick up elementary, go back and pick up middle schools, go back and pick up high schools. And you know, he just kind of acted like, I don't know how we'd operate if we didn't do that.
We also had our student advisory meeting on December the 2nd, and we invited the students from Eagle Ridge, and their representative came down, and one of them, we were talking about this topic, and one of them had been at Riverside in Greenville County last year, and he said that they did that. Parents could drop off kids at 8. I have a friend whose daughter goes there, but he drops her off at 8:15 for an early bird class, like a band that goes all year, or a string. Hers is a band. But then the bus kids don't get there till at 9 to start at 9:15. So you know, and this was, and from his perspective, I mean, he enjoyed that. He thought that schedule was beneficial to him. So just a little interesting tidbit. And we did talk to the students advisory group about it and the other advisory groups.
We'll probably.
Well, that's fine, because I just wanted to make certain we recorded it all so that
Sure.
people would know, parents would know that we've covered all of our bases.
Sure.
And if there are other questions you think of, I'll be happy to talk with Mr. Grant and that, and I think
We're
that was
running out
all
of
the
options
ones.
is the point.
Right.
We're gonna have to probably stagger.
But we'll probably put this back on, maybe even on a consent agenda for January. We would have a work session in January 1st.
Because you need that
and
for
we can-
scheduling too.
We can talk about
Right.
it, we do.
We will need it by,
Just for planning purposes for next year, but in January, we may ask you to make a decision on this.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all for my report.
Okay, Ms. Chambers,
Okay.
operation.
yes, we're going to start with a property matter, and you guys have that information in your packet. We have, I always tried to work with the county on different things, and the county had an option for building a fire station in the Bountyland area, and it was right off of Kiwi School Road, just between the maybe College Children's Home and the Career Center, the South Carolina Job Works location. Well, when they looked at it, they found out it wasn't exactly big enough for what they needed to do. So Mr. Mulder approached us, approached me and Dr. Thorson and Mr. Alexander, and we talked with them, and I know that you guys have always been amicable to trying to work with them. They asked about the property just below, farther down South Cove from the maintenance area, and you have the plat on here, and you can see the area we're talking about. It's a little acre and a third, roughly, for them to lease from us on a 50-year lease agreement for placement of that new Bountyland fire station.
So if you pull into maintenance now, there are two entrances into maintenance. If you go to the second entrance that has the gate that rolls back, there's a fence on the right. So when you pull in that gate, if you're looking to the right, there's a grove of pine trees, kind of sits up on a small hill, 3 or 4 feet up higher than the parking lot.
And the fence,
Pine tree.
the fence is there. We got close to the fence. We got about 10 feet from the fence to give them maximum space. Because if you looked at the plat, it really gets narrow as you get to the back of it. It's not not very useful in the back for them. But it has a nice opening on the South Cove Road side. Of course, there it is right there, sorry. And you can see how we followed the fence line basically on the side closest to maintenance. And we would just like to ask that you all give your blessing on this agreement. That they're still working on the paperwork. We've had, we have our folks look at the paperwork too, but it'd be a 50-year agreement for them to use that. And if there was ever a reason, not that I would foresee, we wouldn't try to get back and have moved the fire department, but it's good for us too. I mean, it's right there by our maintenance.
Is there a reason that they don't want to work out some agreement that we could just turn it over to them and us not have to fool with it at all and don't own that piece of property?
Okay. I'll be happy to. I'll be happy to.
I mean, I don't what.
I don't know what the advantage is from either side. I mean, I don't know why we would want to. We could just do a straight
for the
straight
county.
train. Okay.
Regardless.
The county's done a great job of trying to get the ISO ratings down for people's homeowners insurance, and I think anything we can do to help them with that is positive.
Is that going to be a manned, 24-hour manned station there?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just a volunteer. I don't
Oh,
think
is it? Okay, if it was, it'd be, good security for our maintenance facility.
That's true.
But if when we get to the action item, if you all will give us the approval to either do the lease or work out an agreement for the complete sale.
Unless you see.
Right, unless they give me, I'll talk with David Root, the county attorney.
None of us are going to be involved.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Might save a headache.
Nobody pays us the $50 or $25 or $10 anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I would ask later on that we get this, because they want to move forward. They've got to have the agreement so they can move forward with their plans.
Okay.
Last part for us is the financial report, and I do, again, want to take time to thank Ms. Moore and her department and all those involved in helping with the audit. There was a lot of, obviously, work involved with that. They had to be ready on the drop of a hat notice to go in and answer questions and complete paperwork or give them a report and do these kind of things, and so everybody was very cooperative, and we appreciate that, making it go smoothly for us. So we do thank her for that. And you've had the report. If you guys have questions, we can have Ms. Moore answer. Pretty typical.
Can you scroll up a little bit?
Up to the top, to the top or the bottom?
I want to see the bottom, yeah. Pupils in poverty, what
That
does
is
that in,
it's an add-on waiting for EFA
okay.
for.
I knew that's what it is.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
The two expenditures for speech therapy consulting, that's because we don't have.
We don't have enough employees.
And is that just for a month or a quarter or something, those two?
It's not for a quarter, it's typically a month.
Yeah.
We just happen to have two in the same month.
It could be, yes.
We generally contract out with different companies.
We generally do, and we have a plan to do some serious recruiting of speech teachers, which is going to frankly take Marge out of state to do that, because we're going to have to go find some folks. We did hire 2 new speech teachers actually from Michigan this year, and they've been working out really well. They're very capable, and so what we're finding is that, that we can, if we really go out there and talk to the right folks. We actually just signed an agreement today with Andrews University for internships as well, and that's a Michigan school. So we are doing everything we can, Mr. Lee, to deal with that. Not that our contracted folks aren't fine, they are, but it's a very costly approach, and frankly, we'd just like to have our folks in-house and know that they're here and be able to train them and work with them the way that we would like to.
Any other questions? Right. Is that all, Ms. Tanby?
Yes, sir. I think that's it from our
All
department.
right, Ms. Hopkins?
Switch seats with Ms. Moore. So we put a good bit of assessment data in front of you recently over the last few board meetings. But today I want to just show you what's going on with state report cards and how to see those. So these report cards have just been released in maybe the last 2 weeks. And so I'm at the State Department website, and I'm going to go through the state report cards here. They've changed their website around a little bit, and I want you to see how you can find all the school report cards so you can look at them. So I went to data, report cards, and this brings me here, and I'm going to pause right here. An important thing to understand is what they're saying right here, that schools will not be rated for state accountability purposes until fall 2018. When the state will transition to a single accountability system. And one of the things I would tell you right now is that both the Education Oversight Commission and the State Department have proposals for that accountability system out there, and they are looking for public comment on that. We've put that out for our staff to comment, and I know my team has got out there, but certainly encourage all of you, any of our folks out, our stakeholders in the community to comment as well. So with that said, it's easy enough to navigate this. We're going to just select Oconee. And I want my Mac. And we're going to stay at the district level, and the location will be district, but if you want to look at a school specifically, the drop-downs are really easy to deal with. And then you're going to click on View Report Card, and yay, it popped up. And so you're going to see that they look very different. They're not paper report cards. This is where people will go. On the landing page, you're going to see this overview, and there's Mr. Anabnet and a little bit of basic information. You can see past ratings up here. And the information on here is from the profile of the SC graduate. You've seen that in a form that looks very different, but it's the same language there. Some information about the district, just high-level information, and then a nice just summary narrative that Dr. Thorson put together. So that's on the overview link. The knowledge link is the data that you've seen before. This is a little bit of information about all the assessments. If you click through any of these, I'll go to SC Pass, you'll be able to see specific data on the district and some nice graphs. So part of what we're thinking, just so you know, is that there's no reason for us to duplicate some of this data. What we'll do is do more linking to the State Department sites so that folks can see that there. What will be the new information for you tonight is under the outcomes link and then the opportunities link. And so here we can get a look at our graduation rates. You've got the state graduation rate actually up here. District four-year cohort graduation rate, we're excited to see a few points increase. That's a healthy increase actually. And, as Dr. Thorson often mentions, you can cause that to happen through a variety of means, and not all of them are, really speaking to the rigor of the program. But I would posit that I think what's been going on in our schools is that we have been working really hard on meeting the needs of students and working with them. I think our transition coaches and some of the other staff that we have, I know Mr. Hanby allocated some resources to West Oak High School, for instance, last year, that really made a difference in getting some kids across the stage, and I think all those things pay off. So we are pleased to see that that four-year graduation rate going up a little bit. Same thing if we look at the five-year cohort. Nice percentages for life scholarships and things like that. So, not sure that puts us in the top 10, but those are good numbers to see, and we're trending in the right direction. And then the opportunities link is pretty interesting too if you spend a little bit of time there. And again, I would encourage you to take your time and look at the schools as well as the district. But there are some really nice things going on. Down is not always a bad thing if you're looking at this kind of comparison to last year column. Sometimes down is a good thing. So down and up, you have to kind of look at what the description is. But if we look at, you asked about students in poverty, we do see a difference there. And I think here, some of that is because they're using different indicators for what a student is in poverty, and so we did see a change in that last year. I was really pleased to see students with disabilities down from 16.1. We've been working really hard on that. Marge and her team have worked hard. The principals have really taken on a lot of responsibility for that. So it's encouraging for me to see that some of the things that we're doing and have been focused on, we're seeing significant change in that, and I know we'll continue to do that. You can go down and continue to see, a number of things that get me pretty excited when I'm looking at it. There's some things that I'm not as enthusiastic about. I'm not really thrilled that our AP programs are not at the level that we were before, and I know Dr. Thorson's made that a priority in talking with the high school principals, and we talked about some ways to do that, to get our numbers back up and head in the other direction on that. So not everything is glowing, but all in all, when I go through this, look at things like graduation rates at adult ed, I think we're seeing some nice things across the board here. So there's really some good data, some interesting data here, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions and just encourage you to actually spend time looking at the detail here.
Can you pull up one of the school reports?
Sure, be happy to.
Just want to see what.
Gonna have to back out.
Okay. Be happy to.
Any particular school you'd like to see, Mr. Nabonet?
No,
He's just asking if we can put it
I just want to
together
see
and
what information they
Sure.
give.
Let's just,
And how does it compare?
the format is
and
very
how they
comparable.
compare with the other schools?
They don't make it easy for you to do that. So,
Which I'm just going to be perfectly honest. Many of the superintendents in our state want it that way. They don't want to compare. That is them's fighting words to a lot of superintendents. They don't want their district compared to other districts. And you can guess which districts that is. And that's a fight. She referenced the accountability proposals that are out there from SCASA versus the EOC. And therein lies the problem. SCASA tends to side with the superintendents, and I'm in the minority of superintendents who want to see districts ranked and want to see the competition there. Most do not.
Well, how do we then, determine if our goal is to be a top 10?
well, I'll tell you the
How do
trick.
you know we're there?
The trick is really that we go back to the
Okay.
file, and if you watched closely, and I'm trying to show you where that is, but down at the bottom here, there are data files for researchers, and this is where Greg Bibb, knowing SPSS, really pays off. And I'll tell you, he's been running some great reports and doing some really good analysis for us on a number of things. But what happens is Greg takes this file, pulls that into his special software, and then he manipulates that for us, and that's how we can get to those numbers. So we'll be working on that and being.
Share some of
yeah.
that.
Yeah, but you can see that there's a lot of descriptors, and so what we have to get really clear about are what are those things that we most want to focus on being on the top 10 on, and I know we've been, Sharon and others have been working on trying to put that model together for us. Anything else that you want to see in more detail or any questions?
So we can actually pull up any school district then?
Yes.
You can.
Because there was no code that you asked for.
Exactly. All of that is public information.
The problem is the comparison.
The comparison
it
part of
takes
it.
several clicks, and then do
Yeah,
you remember
you're
the
doing a lot
number
of
it was on the
pasting,
internet?
yeah.
So
Well, I've done
That's what I
that,
was
right,
thinking.
in the past where you have to pull up lots of
Right.
folks and create your own spreadsheet, but
thinking that's
with
what
that
you'd
data
have to do.
file, you can manipulate
And we'll
that a little
continue to
bit.
pull that together as we get new test results and show you where we are. And that's our goal, is to show that we're moving
I
towards
always want
something.
to also know that, it does give you like from 14, 15, 16, whatever.
If we're moving in the
Are
right
we
direction.
moving in the right direction, and are the individual schools
That's right.
moving in the right direction?
Absolutely.
That's what
And we have to be
Like,
careful
be able
because
to
we
see.
got those 4x4s and the AB schedules, and you got singleton AP classes. We sure as heck don't want to be in a position where, like that young lady, she wants her performing arts class as well as she wants her AP class.
And that's why
And they better not
it's
step on
important
each
that we
other.
pull that data into the system anyway, match it up with other data, so we can look at those kinds of things and answer those questions.
I mean, that's my biggest
Yeah.
concern is those singletons, so you don't step on each other. Okay.
Agreed.
That's a valid concern.
Okay, anything else?
Not from me.
Thank you.
Mrs.
Ms.
Williams.
Williams?
Okay, to have a top 10 district, you have to have top 10 employees. So just a great group of employees. So it is recruitment season, so I'm going to kind of just share a couple of things with you just to give you some information on what we're doing at this time to recruit staff for the 17-18 school year. We sent out letters of intent in November, and they're due back Friday. It was about 950 intent letters that we sent out. And because of the competitive market with teachers now and the shortage of teachers, it's critical for us to have that information so that we know what their plans are for next year. So with the intent form, they can either say that they plan to continue with the school district, request to transfer to another school, do not plan to be employed with the school district, so we can kind of gauge the general idea of what type of teachers we'll need. Math, science, which are a critical need, and special ed right now, some very critical needs that we have. I've added the information that I shared with you back in September, right here in the middle of this report, just so you have an idea of the number of employees that we hired on the last 3 years. So this past school year, we hired 95 employees. One of the things that I looked at is that you see that many of our new employees are new teachers for the first time, and also retiring teachers. So we had 41 induction teachers, followed by the next highest number was 17 retirees. So as we're sunsetting with Terry in 2018, there are about 65 folks that will be exiting through the Terry program. How many of those plan to return? There is a group that retired after January 1st, 2013, which will have them in that earnings limitation, so that they would come back with a $10,000 cap, earnings limitation. However, the state did say if we had math or science people, and we can say that we have a critical need for that particular teacher at that time, that they would waive that cap. So there is some flexibility with that, but there are about 29 folks that are at that cap for earnings limitation. So those would be folks that we couldn't hire back if they wanted to come back through after Terrian. So with that happening, it's going to be critical, and that's across the state, that there's some critical needs in finding teachers in general. I did list some of the recruitment fairs that we have signed up for. We just recently went to USC Upstate in Spartanburg, and we had a district right beside us that was offering $10,000 signing bonuses, so it was
Really?
kind of interesting how do we
Especially
compete.
Within the state?
So,
From within the state?
yeah, they actually, I spoke with that HR director, and they had some money through, it's a recruitment retention, which I'll talk to you about that in survey in a little bit, but they offered money from the state to districts that were struggling with recruiting to their district if they had a high poverty index of 80% or higher, and our poverty index did not qualify us for that. And then just living in the upstate near neighboring colleges, we are able to recruit as better than some districts are.
In all
So,
honesty, I don't fault the state for that at all. That's one of the weaknesses in our state, is that it's tough for some of those I-95 districts
right.
to recruit teachers.
Yeah, and so they're using that money to get folks to sign on. And unfortunately, being at USC, we were there from early that morning till about 2 o'clock, and most of the teachers already had jobs, already these were folks graduating in December that they've already been snatched up by the Spartanburg School District, so. But I told them, I said, well, come over and talk to us anyway. I said, you might get tired of working at Spartanburg and we'll come work at Oconee. So we did get to talk to several as well. But one of the things on that next slide there, we, as HR directors, we did a survey for retention and recruitment, and about 85% of the districts participated in that survey. And this is just a list from most to least effective as to what they're looking at that districts have used across the state. So in that first column, you see teacher recruiting methods, their website, SARA, which is the Center for Education, Recruitment, and Retention of Teachers, word of mouth, that is a lot of times how I hear. Sometimes you guys will even just let me know there's someone moved to the area or whatever. I know Denise has talked to me just recently about someone that she knew, but word of mouth is critical. Just including all the stakeholders, just letting them know that we have needs, and they will call and let me know about someone. Alternative routes to certification. So for math and science, it's been good to use folks that have a math or science background but did not go the traditional 4-year teacher education route. Working with higher ed, we're constantly talking to folks. In fact, just today, Dr. Thorson was talking about using some money that we have for special ed to start a special ed cohort. And I called Kim at SWU and did get to talk to her and another professor, so they're very excited about getting some information to do that. And they even said that they had some classes that they could offer that were strictly online. So, and a lot of folks like to be able to go home and sit in their own comfort at home and do their classes. So those are some things that we're looking at. While we're looking at recruiting methods, one of the things they talk about, if you talk about incentives, again, their incentives is what's your community like, being offered professional development. Teachers want to grow and learn. Sometimes there are things that are required by the school district, but they want to be able to do some other type of professional development as well. And I know with the budget cuts years ago, we were not allowed to let folks go places, but everybody likes to feel like they're growing and learning, and that makes them feel good. One of the things that we can cap on too is the teacher loan forgiveness. A lot of young folks, when they're getting out of school, have all this college money they need to pay back, and letting them know that some of our Title I schools, what schools are qualified for loan forgiveness. So we are making them aware, hey, if you work in our district, you can get your loan forgiven if you work at certain schools. And so that is a plug for new teachers. The working conditions in school facilities are good recruiting incentives. We do have nice facilities here in Oconee County, and I do hear that a lot, that some folks, if they been in Charleston or some of the places in the lower part of the state where the facilities are not as nice. They do want to come where there are nice facilities and access to lots of technology. Now, retention is critical, so while we can get folks to come, it is important that we get folks to stay. And so that is one thing that I'm really working hard on. And so you see here, from most to least effective, money is not one of your top things. Is, you know, people want to feel supported. They want to have professional development. They want to have opportunities to grow. You know, I'm here. What's next for me? Why stay in Oconee County? How can I grow? How can I be successful in my career as an educator? So this, I thought, was just good information that you know, and that it's the same, as we can see, there is the same across the state of South Carolina as far as what districts are doing in regards to recruiting and in regard to retaining teachers. So that is a big thing right now. It's really critical with the shortage we're having across the state and across the nation that we work hard to make our staff feel validated, important, and support them in staying in education, because there were several districts at USC Upstate, and everybody was looking for special ed teachers, just teachers in general, math, science, and it was amazing at the few that we had to just take from that group. So that's where we are.
If we can get them married and have a couple children, so maybe we need to start paying a little on the wedding or something.
We're working on it. Oconee County FarmersOnly.com. That's going to be Ms. Williams' professional development.
Do you recruit beyond these universities, or?
We do. As Ginger said earlier, Marge has helped us every year with speech, because, you know, that's her specialty. She can go and talk to the potential folks. So we've gone to places like where Marge would go for speech, but as far as just in general, we've stayed in South Carolina.
Because, you know, we're sitting in a county that has lakes and beautiful lakes and mountains, and with the Palmetto Trail being established the way it is now, it seems to me like do we advertise in university newspaper? I mean, would anything like that work? I'm talking about out of state. I'm talking.
We have advertised in those kind of venues, but they are so expensive.
Are they?
They ask for like $1,000 to $2,000 just to advertise. But that's where you see the last one, the South Carolina Teacher Expo. Sarah does that, and that is one where we have candidates from New York, from California, from Florida. So that is a big expo where we have all of and the State Department is on site there, and they are working with them with their certification. So that's a big job fair that they have at the end of the year.
I think Joe's right, though, that if we had somebody that specialized in Oconee County, not just South Carolina, but Oconee County, I mean, it worked tremendously in real estate. You can see what happened to the
I mean, we got some people coming from out of state. Well, how many are from? I'm out of state. You're out of state.
7 inches of snow in the Detroit area yesterday,
I
so you know.
I was going to say jokingly, we can go to Detroit right now and bring a whole mess of folks down here.
Years ago, we did go. I remember going on a trip to Pennsylvania. We went there. Did we get anybody to come? We didn't. We did interview a lot of folks, but did they come? They didn't. So we did, and I know not during my time, but Mike Pearson, they went to New York a couple of times. They went to Florida. But again, I think we can go places and we get them. We need to keep teachers. You know, that's kind of, you know, I can get a math teacher to come. I can find a science teacher, but will we get them to stay? So that's the critical part, and that's the biggest thing for all folks. I mean, everybody's having they're going back now to having their own job fairs within their districts. That's something that we used to do. When we had the economic crunch, we got away from that, because actually we had this place teachers. Last year with the Tomasi Salem teachers, we didn't really have a need. But I am worried now with the Terry ending and that high number of teachers that are exiting, how many would really want to come back? And then you got that group where we have a cap that can only make $10,000, or their monthly supplement is cut off. So do they want to do that? Probably not. So that's where we do have some.
The state ought to look at that, change
They
that
will.
10,000.
They will.
Well, they've already have with the critical needs, saying that if you find a math
They're gonna
person,
need
they
it.
would waiver that. So I think they're gonna have to look at that. So. And then, you know, the 29 is just what we have in Oconee. I'm not sure what that is like for other districts, you know. Thank you so much, but I do
Thank
appreciate
you.
your support, and I do appreciate the opportunity that you allow us to offer early contracts to folks. And, you know, we like to check them out well. You know, sometimes you go off somewhere and you can get folks, but then you want to make sure there's no baggage. You know, we want to make sure we're getting the right people to work with children.
Any other questions, anything? Okay, thank you. And then down to action items, we exhibit, I put my glasses on, can't see what exhibit that is. Exhibit 5, the memorandum of understanding with Senior Solutions.
Yes, we brought that up. We have been working with them for a year or so. I think Senator Alexander brought this up, and we're working with Doug Wright from Senior Solutions, and we finally got everything worked out where they will occupy 3 of the rooms at the Oconee Academy building. I know if Ms. Long and her group were here, they would talk about how they're excited about that opportunity. There's a lot of things that our students can do, service projects and things, and work together. There's also some grant funding available to help with some projects that involve both the youth and the senior citizens in the community. So we're asking that you approve us allowing them to use those 3 rooms of that building for as long as we can be agreeable to it.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
I make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding with the Senior Solutions using 3 rooms at the Oconee Academy.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? None, all in favor? It's unanimous. And property matter is the fire station that we just talked about.
Correct. And
we have a
you know, I'll investigate the opportunity of them taking ownership of it versus the lease agreement, whichever we come to the understanding. If you
We
would
get a motion to allow Mr. Hammond to have work that out with the county.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? That is also unanimous. Then a motion to go into executive session for personnel items, employment recommendations, and changes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into executive session for personnel items, employment recommendations, and changes.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? That is also unanimous. Thank you, sir, for staying.
Candy, I can't take it from Debbie, candy.